The universe is gently cocooning you, especially in the winter season, to support you in processing all of these things so you get to design and create the life you truly want.
And at the end of the day, the truest trust muscle is no longer caring what and how and when something shows up. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. We are finishing up week 3 of the Authenticity Challenge, where we're really getting to sit with that deep self-acceptance. How can we connect with and love on all parts of us? Really sitting with that self-love DI and grounding into that sensation of what it feels like to be connected, to embody all parts of our authenticity. And then how can we go out into the real world and live from that space, utilizing that DI as like your kind of pep talk before you go out about your day to really ground into all parts of self and how you want to honor them, how you want to prioritize them, how you want to set boundaries according to them. If you haven't joined yet, or if you're not caught up, take your time. The challenge is going to be open well into February, so you have plenty of time to catch up. If you haven't even started yet, now going into the month of December is the perfect time to start as well. And we have our big sale going on right now, which is going to be ending on Cyber Monday. So if you want to get in with the lowest prices of the season, sign up with your friends. Now is the time to do so. Be sure to be signed up for our newsletter as well, because all sale announcements will be on there as well. But as we are ending week 3 and heading into what we're calling our integration month, we really felt the need to have this integration month from previous challenges of just really honoring some of the cycles of the seasons we're in. So in the Northern Hemisphere, we are really in this winter season. But even if you're in the Southern Hemisphere and in the summer season, around the holidays, I think it really amplifies and allows us to take this pause, to take this rest, to take this inward reflection. There's so much even about the themes of winter, death and rebirth, of really witnessing what has transpired. How do we slow down and make space for all of that, to sit with that? And then how do we look forward into the future, begin to plant the seeds of the new? And we will do that in January with the second half of the challenge. And another big announcement with our integration month, we are launching DI playlists. So right now we have them categorized in a big long list in our DI library, but now we're going to be releasing a little section that has playlists. So we're grouping them based off the theme that you guys might be going through. So if you're tested or triggered, you have a collection of DIs to go to immediately. If you're looking for a boost of confidence, you have a whole list to go to. So it's going to be easier than ever to know how to navigate and use this work. We also have a conflict playlist. So for anyone going visiting family over the holidays, this one is going to be huge with 2 new deep imaginings in it. The conflict DI that was modeled off of the nonviolent communication model. And then we also are launching the energetic boundaries DI, which I have got to say, guys, is quickly becoming my favorite DI. It really is this fun visualization practice that you get to see and lay the groundwork for how to separate your energy from other people's energies. It's really nourishing, especially this time of year. And it's so nice to kind of get into the witchy, woo-woo kind of practical essence of some of our DIs again. But I want to really invite any of you who are listening to this, who are doing the challenge, who are just following along from the podcast. Today, we're going to really touch into the trust muscle. And what does it mean to have a trust muscle? What does it mean to surrender? And what does it mean to take your authentic power back? So for anyone out there who feels like they've been calling in a big manifestation for a while and they're just not sure where it is or how to approach this work from that lens, from that viewpoint, this episode is going to be for you. We didn't even intend to do this episode. We intended to do an entire episode on the winter energetics, which we will touch on a little bit in here. But what came through organically, just as we were talking about some of the pain points in our community that we're seeing pop up, we're like, we need to speak to this, to the manifestations that may take a bit longer. How do you really read your own personal patterning, and how can you begin to manifest? So anyone who has done this work before, or if you're brand new, really take the lessons and the examples that are given in this episode and try to apply them to your process. And just know that you can approach every aspect of your life from your true, authentic self. I think you guys are going to really love this one. Enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
It's that time of year again when so much is going on, the stress is high, you're seeing so many people, that I'm needing the support from my favorite apothecary. Anima Mundi is composed of organic, wild-crafted, ethically grown botanicals that are sustainably grown with over 200 different types of herbs from around the world. Founded by Costa Rican herbalist Adriana Ayales, who has been extensively studying healing traditions alongside master herbalists and shamans for 13 plus years. She started out in Brooklyn, New York, and has made a mission to bring these ancient remedies to the modern world. So not only do I love everything that Anima Mundi is doing in terms of their business, how they're sourcing their materials, how they're bringing wellness and holistic healing from ancient remedies into modern day and preserving those traditions in such a sacred way, but their products are so incredible. The highest quality is so potent and really, really work. These are some of the favorites I've been using this season. Their Relax Tonic, which has been an absolute must. This really supports your nervous system. If you are in a state of never-ending to-do lists or tasks or things that you have to accomplish this season, whether it's holiday decorations, family coming over, this is going to help slow everything down and give you that support for your stress. It has lemon balm, passion flower, chamomile, ashwagandha, and lavender, and really just eases your mind, body, and soul whenever you take it. Then I have been loving their Margot digestive bitters. I take a little dropper on the tongue before eating that heavy meal or eating something I don't typically eat, and it helps to stimulate digestion. It also helps support your liver with inflammation, with metabolism. It helps with detoxification. There's also ginger in there to even support your digestion even more. It's so helpful to make sure you're digesting all your food properly. Then the last two I'm loving that I've been incorporating with my TBM process is their heirloom cacao. I'm pouring myself their incredibly medicinal, spiritual cacao before I go in to do my TBM practice, to really have an intention, to have a moment of stillness and silence with myself. And then the other part I'm loving is their blue flower of intuition tea, their blue lotus tea, which has been known to connect you into a deep meditative energy, open up the third eye, connect to lucid dreaming. It also helps tap into intuition. Really, I see it as something that calms your nervous system down so your intuition can come online. Check them out online. You can go to animamundi.com or you can check out the link in the show notes. They have tons and tons of medicinal botanicals that can help you this time of year, or they're amazing for gifts over the holidays. And we have a discount code for 20% off. Use code TBM20 for 20% off. Check the link in the show note and put TBM20 in checkout and enjoy.
All right. On to the episode.
We wanted to dive in today with a little bit of the trust muscle, a little bit diving into the importance of having a trust muscle with your manifestation practice, about the manifestations that might take a little longer I know some of you might have some big manifestations on your list. And in that first year, you're starting to see some bridges and other manifestations come through. But there are just those ones that you have to give that surrendered time to. And we wanted to kind of call that out and speak to that a bit. And then we also wanted to talk about the winter energetics. We did the summer energetics episode that was a huge hit. And depending upon what hemisphere you're in, you can go back and listen to the summer energetics one or listen to the winter one. But I think they all kind of coincide with this, energy of the season of trusting, surrendering, being in that rest and restorative nature, but also in your magic and in your power.
I was going to say, well, Jessica and I always get to chat a little bit before with Olivia, who's helping us produce these episodes. And Jessica said it so well. She was like, we share that 98.3% people who completed the challenge in the past, completed it, manifested what they were calling in within 6 months. And she's like, but we're getting a couple of write-ins about the people who are like, oh my God, I'm in that 2 point whatever percent. I didn't get the thing. And Jessica will be like, okay, well, I think you're DMing with these people, right? Yeah. And you'll be breaking it down with them. Break it down a little bit.
Yeah. So I think the other thing to remember too is like there are a lot of things you're calling in. There are a lot of manifestations that present. And so you may have one big manifestation that maybe hasn't come through in a specific timeline, but have you been manifesting little things? Have you been manifesting other big things? One person wrote in and said they were manifesting their partner and their partner hadn't come through yet, but they manifested a new home, a new job, all these new major things in their life. And I'm like, girl, you are in the 98.3%. Like, what are you talking about? Especially when we want something so big and it feels so important to us and it feels like so life-changing that we miss the opportunity to see all the other goodness that may be coming through in the interim. And it's really important to witness. That's why we have the yearly inventory. Witness the shifts that transpired, even the internal shifts. Do you feel like a new person showing up to your life? Do you feel more confident, more authentic, more self-assured? Can you handle tests and triggers with more ease? Are you spiraling out in the same old ways? Like, those are huge manifestations. Let's start to clock those moments. And then that is going to give you that foundation, that trust that that bigger thing is coming. It's just in that divine timeline.
I think also to what you're saying, what's so important to remember is all of those last pieces you just named that are more internal are going to be the thing that actually brings that big manifestation to you. Because when we're clinging on to a manifestation, you gave that example that quite a few people in the community have shared, like, where's my partner? They're getting the home, the job, the thing, the this and the that, but they're like, but my partner. And we all know this. We can even talk to this a little bit, but especially when it comes to the partnership and finance, combo, the more you cling and are desperate for it, the more you're pushing it away because it's literally low self-worth energy. Jessica made the point where she was like, the person said, I'm doing the expanding, I'm doing the unblocked, I'm doing the aligned action. Where is this person? And so, like a little example that I shared, on Mondays, most Mondays, I do this little roundup of my authentic code. But this prior Monday, which will have been 2 Mondays ago, I shared differently. I shared what I had my bigger manifestations in 2024 because I had done the pre-week inventory. And just like you all who are doing it, I went, oh, holy fuck, I've manifested everything on my list except for one very big thing that I know I'm not fully expanded enough yet for. And this example will lead into that. So I went through it and I went, oh my God, I manifested everything. And I wouldn't have even totally clocked that. It was humbling the same way it is for you guys if I hadn't have done that pre-week challenge inventory. And I had a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who voice noted me and said, Lacy, because she was like, wait, what's this Victorian farm you've manifested? I've been seeing you sprinkle this around. And I sent it to her and I explained the whole story to her. And she was like, Lacy, you don't know how helpful it is for me to see that you've been calling that in since 2018. You know what I mean? That big thing. And I told her the whole story. So along the way, I had to manifest a couple of bridges before it came through. Mariposa being the very first one, of course, which I got for $290,000. And I've made hand over fist cash on because of doing all of the short-term leasing. And now I just do it with my close community. I don't do it on Airbnb anymore. And then even the property in Mendocino was a bridge, similar situation. I knew we did a live. I remember so specifically, we did a live here when I was here looking at the property that I bought in Mendocino prior. And I went, I know this is a bridge. It's not the practical magic Victorian thing that faces the ocean. You know, it's the forest meets the sea. It's not my full list. It's not. But I know it's very close to what I want. It's a bridge. And that took me 7 years to manifest. I'm the person who channeled this work. It took me 7 years to manifest that big manifestation, but it doesn't mean I wasn't manifesting the things along the way. I was just manifesting what I was expanded enough for, unblocked enough for, and then eventually the thing came through. And that very big thing that's still at the top of my list, when I say I manifested everything in 2024, to me, I did, because I still know that that one golden thing on my list, I still need quite a bit of expansion for. I know that's going to carry over into 2025, possibly even into 2026. And I'm okay with that because my trust muscle is so strong from manifesting, you know, since day one. But even till now, I manifest very big things that still aren't 100% the thing. This even Victorian property, as we're going through the contingency process, there's one thing that's come up where even today with Max, I was like, let's ask for this credit back. If they won't do it, I'll walk. I'm in that deep of trust that I'm willing to be like, fuck it. Another thing will come. That's how deep my trust muscle is. But I'm just sharing this example because I can see being in this work and not acknowledging all the things that Jessica highlighted and not taking that inventory and not seeing how far someone's coming and how much magic they're producing and manifesting because maybe that thing that they're dog paddling for the most hasn't come through. And maybe that leads us into the conversation a little bit. We've touched on it a ton before, but maybe dog paddling energy, just a little bit of a refresh.
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the home process, but like there is such that balance of being attentive to what triggers and tests are coming up that surround whatever you're calling in, understanding your block, your story with it. You know, if you're someone, let's say you're not calling in a partner, let's say you're calling in financial abundance and you just can't seem to like get your legs under you for it. Have you deeply looked at those stories, those patterns, those, what did you pick up from your parents? What was modeled to you? What is the fear at stake for your inner child if you actually get that connection? I had a friend who on the partner, I have a lot of friends manifesting partners, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but a friend that was manifesting partner and she's had amazing bridges and she's gotten really close in some relationships. And she's like, oh, but I still haven't done it. And I'm like, but you have in so many, every relationship, you become more and more yourself. You're more and more able to identify quicker what does not work, what you will not settle for. You're setting boundaries. Her growth has been insane in relationships. And it's just a matter of time until that perfect person meets her. But all of that work that's been happening, I'm like, you're doing amazing. Enjoy that for this moment. You know, it doesn't have to be this, I'm not good enough until I get X. You're good enough now. It's just like the beautiful timing and dance with the universe. And look at all this beautiful magic you're creating by showing up for yourself, by not settling, by saying, oh man, I was totally projecting my dad onto that partner and I don't want to do that anymore. And so how do I show up differently? That is the beauty of this work. So anyone who feels like they're putting their manifestation on a pedestal, that they're not good enough until they get it, that they're not, you know, they're too blocked or something's wrong with them. Nothing's wrong with you. It's a beautiful dance and timeline. It's an honor and a privilege to get to work through all of this internal stuff and actually create the life that you want to create.
Agreed. And I think said so well.
I'm just so passionate on it, you know, like I, of course, love this work so much. And I just feel like I want people to, even putting the work on a pedestal, take your power back. They're tools. You have so much wisdom within you. Just utilize what you need when you need, you know, don't look to me or Lacy is like, oh, you have to do it in this way. It's like, look at the countless examples of process episodes of people who did it in their own unique way. And it worked out so perfectly for them. You're utilizing the tools. You plus the tools and the universe are making magic.
And that's why we always call it dancing with the universe, because you're not just standing there, you're not just like being positive and waiting. You're dancing. It's a dance. It's a give and take. So it's like when the universe takes the lead, you follow. When you take the lead, it follows. It's a ebb and flow. So it is really perfect what you're saying.
Oh, so good. Lacy, talk about those bigger manifestations. Like one of those for me, I think is like our wedding. I like had it on the list, I think probably for 2 years now. But I knew probably about like a month into the year after I wrote it down that it wasn't going to happen that year because the energy of like trying to plan it just drained. For some reason, it's just not feeling like this moment. And a lot of it was surrender. Is there stuff I can look at where I may be being avoidant? Yes. Okay, let's unblock and sit with that. Okay, I have a lot of expanders in it. But then at one point, I was just like, I got like a very strong ping. This is just not the right time. You're going to get like a gut sensation that's like, yes, start the planning process now. Really actively like start looking again, really find the things. And it's funny because this past week I had a big expander get married and got so expanded by the way that she did it and how intentional it was and how minimal she did things. I was like, oh, maybe I was waiting for like this model. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This example of like what it could be. So yeah, how do you contextualize those bigger things that in your gut, you're like, it just doesn't feel like the right timing, but I know it is coming for sure.
Yeah, oh, that's such a good example. So you have the journal behind you, I can see it. And in it, we placed a really important description, right? You have major manifestations and minor. It doesn't mean that some are more important than others. It's not, and that's not how I see them. The major, they could be very fast, right? If all divine timing of expansion and unblocking came together, it doesn't mean they have to be that far out. I intuitively, like you just spoke about your wedding, I intuitively know when those things are further out because I can feel into how expanded and unblocked I am. But the universe, just like you just shared, continues to wink at me. That's how I know that that thing is supposed to be on my list and supposed to be on my radar still. So for instance, this one particular manifestation, which I wouldn't even name on here because it still feels so big. Like until I'm even closer to it happening and getting it, I wouldn't even name it. That's how I still need so much expansion and unblocking. It's really big. And basically, I've kept it on there for probably the last 3 years that I have had it. And it was 3 months ago, Max's best friend, who's super techie, came over and I was explaining it to him and he's like, oh, I know A, B, C, and D, like throughout all of these expanders, all of these things. And I was like, if you can navigate that for me, bam, this can happen. Kind of, this thing can happen. Just by that experience, I knew the universe is like, stay in alignment, stay in tune, keep that on your list, keep expanding and unblocking. I am slowly doing the dance of trying to make this connect with you. And the other thing I know about it is you mentioned, and I might have said it, just divinity, divine timing. There is a very specific time when this particular manifestation is supposed to happen because there are so many pieces at play. So it's not even just about me and my expansion and unblocking. It has to do with so much more than that. So just like what you've been sharing, that divine timing of going to this particular wedding that you just went to and going like, seeing this in a separate way. Even as you were talking, I was getting the channeling. Once that venue finds her and she sees the perfect expansion, it's going to like generator hit you. I just know it's going to hit you so hard where it's all you can think about, do, plan, make happen. I know that.
That is the ping I've been getting too. There will be a moment where you'll be like, yes. And that is why it's taken so long.
Yes. And okay. And so another thing I want to highlight about everything you just shared, and I want to like really bring it back down to the person who is waiting for partnership, because I love partnership examples. It's because it's something we all can relate to. All of us have been in a position where we've wanted a partner and wanted to call a partner. And so, or have dated, have gone through dating experiences. It's just such a unanimous topic, in my opinion. So if we were to like flip this on the partnership side, and if somebody in there is wanting to see this in their career, look at it like that. Look at it, what I'm about to say, the same in housing or whatever. But let's take a minute. If you are so desperately calling in your wedding, you're like, I need this thing to validate me, right? That's the person who's sitting there being like, I need partnership. It's not just about that companionship they're longing for, because if they were integrated enough, they would be getting that with themselves. They would already be in the space where they were or are where you were at that wedding. If someone's dog paddling for one of their manifestations, let's just get back to the partnership example, or let's get back to the wedding example. If you were clinging to needing this wedding to validate you in order to move forward in your life and relationship and the next steps, you would be sitting at that wedding, not being totally integrated, totally present, so happy to just be there and allowing yourself to be expanded and happy for those people. You'd be sitting there being like, nitpicking the wedding, jealous of, all those triggers and things would be coming up because you would be dog paddling, you would be clinging. And that is not the space in which we manifest from, because it's not true surrender. And what I always say with manifestation, you've heard that in a lot of superstitious manifestation practices, it's like, then release it and it'll come to you. That's not how it works. It's an energetic. The true energetic of surrender is when you're expanded and unblocked enough. That is real surrender, because you don't have anything attached to it anymore. There's no more attachment. And that's not something you can fake. If you weren't in pure surrender about your wedding, in total confidence, total integration, knowing it's going to happen at the perfect divine time, how it's going to be, and it's going to be even more perfect because it waited until that point that you got the ping and you went for it. If you weren't in that, or let's put it this way, what makes you able to be in that is because you're expanded and unblocked enough, and you're not attached to it. You're not dog paddling towards it. You are allowing it to unfold in its perfection so that you have your perfect, magnetic, authentic wedding. That's what's going on. The same thing applies to whomever's feeling like they're falling in that 2 point, I can't do math, but whatever percent of the percentage we always throw out, it's because you're attached to it. You're needing it to validate you. And in partnership, we've had prior episodes where we've talked about max manifestation, we've talked about Daniel manifestation, but you don't manifest your partner from that place. You just don't. It doesn't happen because your person's orbiting you the moment you cast it. Even when I cast that huge major manifestation on my list, even though it's a bit out because there's no such thing as true time and space and manifestation, it's already orbiting me. It's already trying to get to me. Every single thing I'm doing in my life is leading to that moment. It's leading to the perfect unblocking, the perfect expanding, the perfect aligned action to get me to that space. The same with your wedding. And that's the same for anybody who's sitting on here who's like, I haven't manifested that thing yet. Just like Jessica said in the beginning, because this episode in conjunction with Winter Energetics is about the trust muscle. What in the fuck have you been manifesting along the way? That should be your roadmap, your total roadmap to knowing I am manifesting. And then not only will I manifest that big thing, but the real piece of work here to be taking through this challenge is the true integration into our authenticity through unblocking, expanding, all the things we're going to be doing with all of the authentic work and the new deep imaginings in order to get to true surrender, which means no dog paddling left. And you can't fake that. That's something you get to.
I think too, like in week 2 of the challenge, when we're really identifying those places where we're not in our authenticity, part of that could be, where are you trying to control? Where are you trying to manipulate the timeline because you're putting that thing on a pedestal of it's going to change my whole life and my life isn't worthy enough or good enough yet until I get that thing? How are you putting that above you in some way, that's compromising your authenticity. That's saying, I don't think I'm okay just as I am. I think I need this other thing to become what I am. And that's why the self-love DI is going to be so good, because it's like, you don't have to become anything. You need to accept all parts of you in this time and space moment. In this moment in time, how can you really just appreciate who you are right now, not needing these other things, and then live from that space? If you're getting perfectionistic with the practice, just try to loosen the control that you have with it and take your power back. This is fun. This is joyful. Like, you get to do, yeah, it's magic. Like, you get to do this. How beautiful. Don't make it a punishment or something that's bad about you or all these things. The universe is gently cocooning you, especially in the winter season, to support you in processing all of these things that you've experienced, so you get to design and create the life you truly want. I just want to really hammer home that reminder to people that it doesn't have to be like, but I did A, B, C, D. It's like, okay, take a breath. What do you need right now? And that's why we have that whole month of integration. Use the DI that calls to you. There's no prescription. We're not going to tell you, do this step, that step. Really start to create your own trust muscle with this work, with this practice, so you know what you need when. So you know if you need the calming, you know if you need to feel your emotions, you know if an inner child part is just raging behind the scenes and taking the driver's seat, and you have to like really sit with it in a DI. Allow that to be your roadmap in this.
I agree. And at the end of the day, the truest trust muscle that one can arrive at in their practice amidst doing this for a long time is no longer caring what and how and when something shows up. And again, that's not something you can fake. You arrive at that from everything you're talking about, Jessica. Like, you arrive there. I would say, like, even where I'm at, which again, I've been doing this for so long, but where I'm at, there's never a timeline in my mind or my head about anything anymore. Again, I've manifested so many things, so I have the ultimate trust muscle, but never a timeline. It's such a pleasant surprise when things come in, and I'm like, oh, there's that thing, there's that thing that, and when you do get to that place, you really do start dancing with the universe in a beautiful way, where the perfect expansion comes when it's supposed to, the perfect triggers and experiences come when they're supposed to. It's kind of like a symphony, that it all is working so divinely and perfectly, and that thing is definitely coming at the perfect time. And I remember that with manifesting finally getting pregnant after dealing with infertility for 5 years. When Teddy came, I couldn't have been in a more perfect spot to have a child. I really couldn't. Whereas when we started, when I was 31, I had her at 36. I would have been having to hustle so much with her and a little baby, and I just can't function like that, or I see, and this is perfectly fine too, but I'll see friends who will have children earlier, and then they're just trying to catch up in their careers for so long, in all facets. And when I say that, I mean TPM, real estate, like everything I'm accomplishing, it was so divine. It was so divine. And that was that thing I was dog paddling towards the most, crying on the floor every time I get my period, every time I'd have a miscarriage, every time something didn't work out. It was so clingy and painful and dog paddly. But when it all finally started to orchestrate perfectly, it was just how I feel now about it. It was just like, and here we are. That's the ultimate space of trust and surrender and trust muscle. And all of the things Jessica just talked about are what actually plays into arriving there.
Have you ever experienced hair thinning, your hair falling out in the shower, trying to grow thicker, fuller hair, but it feels kind of lifeless or limp? Or maybe your hair is super greasy like mine is prone to be, or has flakes in it. At this point, you guys have heard me express my profuse love for Acton Acres product line. It has been so incredible supporting my hair growth journey and really addressing the root of the problem. Because you know at TBM, we like to get down to the root. What I loved about Acton Acre and what made it truly stand out is their founder, Helen Reavy, is a board certified trichologist who really understands the scalp and how the scalp's microbiome impacts how your hair grows. So she created an entire line of products to support your scalp health, which will in turn support your hair growth. It's not just getting the vitamins in, although that's part of it. It's about a holistic approach to scalp care. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, the number one question I get asked when I hop on stories is like, what did you do with your hair? Because it is growing so long and luscious. And I really attribute it to this routine with Acton Acre. 20 minutes before I shower, I put in their scalp detox. This is really the baseline of scalp health. This helps remove the impurities, the sweat, the buildup. If you use products, if you're in a place with high pollution or bad air quality, anything can get trapped around in your hair. And especially because I have super long hair now, making sure I clear all of that so my scalp is detoxed and cleansed properly, because most shampoos do not do this for you. So I put that on first. Then if my hair is still greasy, I'll use their salicylic acid scalp exfoliator. It used to be called their Scalp Renew. I swear by this product. You only need to use it maybe once, twice a week max, and just put it on 20 minutes again before you shower instead of your scalp detox that day. Rub it in with your fingers, and the next wash, you will notice a difference in your scalp. It will be way less greasy, more buoyant, more full of life, and less dull. It also gives my hair more volume. I swear by this product so much. And then their third product, which I've been testing out and loving the effects of, is their stem cell scalp serum. Now, this is something where it's really going to help you grow that thicker, fuller hair. It's formulated with Swiss apple stem cells, which are clinically proven to improve hair growth and boost thickness. And if you've been wanting to test out any of the Acton Acre hair care or scalp care products, including their shower head, which I also swear by, head over to Acton Acre, that's ACTANDACRE.com, and use code TBM30 at checkout for 30% off, or check the link in the show notes to direct you right there. Enjoy. So this is a really good nuance to call out too, because for example, with the wedding, I've known pretty much from the beginning that I will have that, yes, this is the place. Yes, this is the time. It will just hit me. And there's also that deep knowing, like, I know this is going to happen. I know it's going to be great. I don't need to control it. But then when I was manifesting the home, I would dance between needing to control the timeline because I really wanted the spaciousness, and then going back to surrender, and like going back and forth between the two, and just coming back to, okay, let's surrender more. Let's surrender more. So with the baby manifestation, or for someone else out there, like with that big thing that they're having that dog paddling with, where they're having trouble surrendering, what tips would you give them? Because the only thing that I can think of that will really, really help is like, think of the other manifestations where you have been in surrender and use that as that sensation guidepost. They just feel different.
Yeah. That's exactly how I'm like, oh, so what you want to talk about is a trust muscle.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we're talking about, right? And that's why I love patterning and this work, like really, really looking at past patterns and how past manifestations have come through. With the home manifestation, was it similar to other big manifestations that have come through? I even know in career for you, like the moment you truly, truly stop, you'll get very forceful, and then you'll just be like, fuck it. Like, I know it's good. And then it's like a wave comes of like magic. So was the home similar to that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like learning our own personal patterning. So whoever's sitting there right now, I mean, everybody sitting here listening to this has a manifestation they're calling in. So every single person sitting here, let's look at our past patterning of manifestations coming through. It's not always 100% the exact way, but the energy is very similar. And when I say the energy, our energy is very similar to past experiences. So would you say that in career, like home, like Daniel, they've been very similar patterns of your own personal patterning before the thing came through?
Yeah, I would say there's usually, except for Daniel. Daniel was like full ease, but that was because I had a huge rock bottom before that like really got me in my power and prepared me. So that felt like a lot more ease. But with home and in career, there's, I guess, pedestalizing, but it's almost like you have blinders on. You only see the route forward looking like X. It's almost like, how am I missing the present? I'm so far in the future. I'm so far in like what we need to do to line everything up to be perfect in the future, that let's just sit with what's present and how can we respond to that one step at a time. And then it like gives me that release where I'm like, oh, I know this is going to ultimately work out in the highest good. So how can I just continue to be present with like this right now? I don't need the 10-year master plan. How can we just sit into what feels good right now? And then that has been my like catapult into something else.
And like, just to dig into it deeper, because love and money are connected, right? And home and career are under the same branch of energetics of money. If you were to look at the Daniel thing and you were to be in that space, again, you can't fake it. It's something you arrive at. But like, let's say you were to be in a similar energetic space as you were with Daniel, where do you think career and home, like, how do you think the process of career and home would have been of manifesting?
Oh my gosh, so much faster
Yeah.
and so much more
Yeah.
easeful.
Well, like, what's that root thing? The thing you had with Daniel. And again, it's not something you can fake, right? What were the things that played into that complete self-worth, authenticity, and surrender?
Okay, so this might be a good one. So before meeting Daniel, I had a rock bottom where I was in a relationship, thought I was going to get married to that person. My whole version of reality crumbled. And so as I was rebuilding and finding myself again and like, enjoying my life, being independent, it's almost like that version of reality that I was so attached to was no longer feasible. I detached from that. Okay, well, now the whole world's opened up because now anything's possible. Because I was so clinged to that, reality being true, and I had to detach from it, now anything's possible. So when I met Daniel, it was like, great, you could be my partner, maybe not, who knows? Like I didn't need him to then fulfill a void or a role or a position in my life, because I was kind of like, anything goes. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but anything goes. And I really trust, back to that trust muscle, trust that I will know if this feels good or it doesn't feel good. But now I have the power. I'm not worried about someone else's attachment.
So what I'm seeing, this is like what a client session would be like. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what I'm seeing, the through line is that your nature, your natural nature, whatever the wounding is, or we'll call it your Capricorn, your natural nature is to attach to a very specific type of home experience, a very specific career, X, Y, and Z, a very specific partnership situation. Like what you're constantly attaching to with the universe is, this is what it needs to look like for it to be the thing. However, the universe is like, okay, let's play some ping pong to show her, get that picture out of your way. Know the things, know the list, and do your work to get into that energetic you were in with Daniel. Stop obsessing, controlling, having to be this thing, and it's all going to happen a lot faster. That's the through line I'm seeing through your personal patterning. And to highlight that, because we all have our own personal patterning, the two things I would take away from just this personal patterning conversation for you specifically, but I think it's helpful for other people to hear. There's two things I would take away from it. Number one, attaching to that thing you see. I think that's very Capricorn. It's probably a bit of wounding. It's probably two-part. That thing you see, knowing that when you attach to that and so firmly and gotta have it, that's the thing, that's what's gonna lead me to whatever, that it's actually your first point of contact with tremendous expansion. So it's actually a good thing because it's your North Star. And then I would do the work to get rid of any need, any of the
Or
bullshit.
it to look exactly like
Yes.
that.
And I wouldn't just be like,
Yes.
you know what, I'm throwing it all away and surrendering. You have a process to that. And I want to talk about that next. So that's the first thing I would take away. That thing is the first point of expansion. And then the second piece, which we'll dig into a little bit now, of what you did between the home and between career stuff to really let go. That would be the next thing I would do anytime after I have that first point of expansion of what the thing's supposed to look like. I would then go into my personal process of how to now do whatever unblocking, expanding, etc., to be able to let it all go, knowing that the list is there and that the common thing I'm hearing too from all three of those manifestations, from career, from that home, from the new home, and Daniel, is that they've all been better than what you were attached to.
1,000%.
Yeah. So let's hear beyond Daniel, because the universe forced you into that. That means that he was so close to you, you had to get ready really fast to be ready for him. But let's talk through career. I think this is helpful for anybody listening, because you'll be able to look through your own personal patterning to see what work you have to do when you're dog paddling and attached to a specific type of manifestation and arriving at a specific point. What did you do between those oscillating phases of career and also the home before the manifestation came through? How did you actually truly arrive at surrender, empowered, authentic?
Yeah, I would say it's all about releasing attachment and knowing that you're going to be fine no matter the outcome. That worst case scenario DI is such gold for that. It's in week 2 of our authenticity challenge. But if it feels really deep, if the attachment's like really strong, I like to do the journaling and the full DI. And you might even have to go back a few times. But what you're basically exposing yourself to in there is that, and for me, like I had that North Star picture. If it doesn't look like that North Star picture, if I know that I can still get my needs met, I can still achieve my dreams, I can still live in the home that I love or have the career that I want, but it doesn't look like this, how can I break the attachment to that? That is what kind of separated it. And then there's another prompt in there where it's like, okay, what if separating it looking like this actually means that something even more aligned can come through? That's when I'm like, whoa, okay, maybe I don't even want this North Star vision anymore. Like maybe I want something totally different. And that brings me back to that energy that I was in with Daniel, where it was like the world is open. Anything is possible, anything goes, because I think the underlying belief that I have in surrender is that I know my version of it where I can get my needs met and it can be of my highest good is out there, even if I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know there is a version out there. And I like truly, truly, truly believe in that. And I think that's what allows the surrender.
So when you were doing, because I want to break it down for anybody who's identifying right now, they're like, oh my God, this resonates. Shit, I have been manifesting. I have been totally changing. My life's changing, but I haven't had that thing come through. And again, you're going to have your own personal pattern. What we've done here is we've looked at the last 3 big manifestations that have moved the needle in your life. And we've looked at her first point of contact with it. And then we've looked at how and this is what I want to dig into a little bit more, how you fully have arrived at that place of total surrender. So let's walk through it a little bit even more specific for the person who's like, okay, I'm going to do that DI and I'm going to find my way of handling my attachment to something. When you were doing that DI, let's say on the home, let's say you were doing that DI, and how did you specifically in the DI or the journaling prompts, arrive at the place of knowing that your version that's going to meet your needs in your highest good is out there? How did you arrive at your trust muscle?
I think it was allowing different examples of it to meet my needs and be out there, but not look the way I think that it should have looked. With the home, there was like a very specific neighborhood. I almost wanted one on a very specific hill. Meanwhile, it's like astronomically out of budget, but I was like, maybe they just need someone to take care of it. Like, you never know. Like, I was just in my total delusional phase. But I started getting expanders of people who purchased homes or were living in homes out in Lake Arrowhead, like an hour or so outside of LA. And then friends who got spots in like Utah. And then friends that, were in a further out part of neighborhood in LA in Pasadena. But that's not the neighborhood I want. I don't want to live there. And I was like, well, why? What if I could have all my needs met and more? And I'm just getting so fixated to it being in this one neighborhood, but actually I could get those needs met in so many different ways. And so then when I was on Zillow, I would expand my search. I'd start looking in Lake Arrowhead. I'd start looking in Pasadena. I'd start looking in all these places that, in one point we were like, okay, what about out in the valley? That feels like a suburban, like maybe the energy of those spaces that I was totally discrediting could actually be the nurturing energy that I really want. And when I was able to open up the possibility and actually follow line action, like go look at some of those places, actually really consider them and get the expansion that way, I could see a life being built here. I could see, our family here. This isn't the spot because I don't like, this one feature, but I could see it here. That broke that attachment that it had to look so specific.
I love that. What the universe was guiding you into, I mean, you just said it, but the universe, like if you were not open enough to entertain those other areas, you wouldn't have then gone in person or seen on Zillow enough. You wouldn't have found the exact expansion you needed to ultimately manifest in the exact spot that you were calling in, right? Because you got the exact neighborhood you were calling in, right?
I mean, yes, I didn't even understand that this area existed. Right. I didn't think that this was here at all. I'm just still very much in awe of like, I feel like this was built in the middle of like, I just don't understand how it exists, especially because I was so obsessively checking. I couldn't see this place for some reason.
This is even more important for people to hear. Listen to the steps Jessica took. So what I'm hearing, just from what I know about these places geographically, right? So Lake Arrowhead has a lake in nature. Pasadena, suburban, by the mountains. And you didn't even know this manifestation that's been orbiting you. You called it in, it's been orbiting you. This particular house has been orbiting you since the moment you called it in. It was getting ready for you the whole time, whether it was the people living in it were going to be leaving.
It was under renovation that whole time.
Under renovation the whole time. Yep. There you go. It's been getting ready for you this entire time. You didn't know where it was, but you had this attachment to this North Star of like, it has to be this house on the street. But what your soul was asking for, because you tuned in when your friend got a place in Lake Arrowhead, you tuned in when your friend got a place in Pasadena, in Utah. So you weren't even intelligent enough to know that this place would be in the nature. So I just want people to hear that are like, I'm in the 2 point whatever percent that is calling in my partner and I haven't gotten it yet. Jessica, how long did you call in this house?
It was on last year's challenge. So last December to this September.
To the September. I just really want to hammer that point home. This is how the universe works so divinely, that your soul needed nature removed from the chaos of the city. That's what I hear when I hear suburban, because you were literally in the thick of
Hollywood.
Right? And so your soul, your authentic, completely authentic soul needed this. You started to call in something that was a little bit different that you were really attached to. So I just want people to really, really hear that. The universe knew more intelligently what you needed based on what your authentic soul needs to be happy. And so you attached to this particular thing, which again, the house you're talking about, I don't know if that was the initial very first house, but that thing was your North Star, your first point of expansion. It's by nature, but it's not as divine as the house you ended up calling in, which actually has all the things you wanted. However, you weren't expanded enough because you didn't even know that neighborhood existed. You wouldn't even have known to look there or focus your sights on it. So the universe had to literally ping pong and dance with you to get you to listen to the friend that moved to Lake Arrowhead in Utah, to be like, to get you more energetically expanded to this exact thing. And so when you were able to surrender by entertaining maybe Lake Arrowhead, maybe Pasadena, maybe Utah. When you were able to open up your vision and ultimately come into true surrender, that's when this thing that was perfect for you, granted, you did a tremendous amount of unblocking and all of that along the
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
this thing opened up. And you've shared that episode. For anybody who hasn't heard it, you can see a link of the episode beneath this. Click it and hear it, because you get really, really deep into the specifics of it for someone who wants to take this even further. But I just really want to make that point. We all have our own personal pattern. We all can arrive at the level of surrender you were at based on our own personal patterning. And that's essentially what we truly call a trust muscle.
Yes, I physically sat down with Daniel and wrote this on the list last December, but this has been in my knowing since like 2016.
Well, I even remember when you guys manifested that trip, was it New Year's that was in, where was it, Wyoming or Utah?
Oh,
or
in
somewhere?
Jackson Hole.
In Jackson Hole, right?
Yeah.
You were in the hotel and you were like, I want to live in a house
Yes.
that looks like this hotel, right? So you had been like,
Yes.
when we say either you consciously or unconsciously casting your list, you were already unconsciously calling in that manifestation. By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the magnetic self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself, or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest.
And we have our big end of year challenge, our authenticity challenge going on right now, where you can ground into your true authentic self, your soul's essence, your soul's desires, and truly manifest the life you desire from that place. We are going to walk you hand in hand. It's not too late to join. And we have our big end of year sale going on right now, where you can get the lowest prices of the Pathway. The sale will be ending at midnight PST on Cyber Monday. So get it while it lasts. You can check the link in show notes or go to our website, tobemagnetic.com, to access and learn more. I think you just have certain things on your list that you're like, I have been wanting the nourishment of X for a long time, whether it's the home or the nourishment of a true partnership, or maybe you want the nourishment of a career that you feel so passionate and in love with. You can see how, whether you physically wrote it on your list or whether you have just like unconsciously just feel like your soul has been calling towards it for a long time, just as much as you can, hold on to the truth that that thing is coming. You wouldn't have that desire, that longing, that curiosity, that wanting for that thing if you were not meant to connect with it. You're meant to connect with your divine version of it, your authentic version of it for you. So I just don't want anyone to feel disheartened or feel like, well, maybe this is too big of a dream. I'm not meant to have this. Sitting in that hotel even and being like, wow, I can't wait to have like a huge tall fireplace one day and just sit around the fire. Feels so cozy and all of these things. You are meant to have that in your own way. Just deeply, deeply trusting that in your soul, that all of the things that are coming up are not supposed to dissuade you off the path or make you think that you're dreaming too big. It's just, how can you make those little tweaks, those little dances, be humble enough to surrender to it looking a little bit differently, but actually meeting all your needs?
And I guess like the bigger takeaway from this entire conversation is how can you start to see each of those things? Like how we just reframed, when you have that attachment to something that it has to be this and I'm forceful, how can we start to reframe that? Oh no, this is just one of my first major points of contact with expansion, and let it go. Have your list, but go, thank you, expander. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to go collect 5,000 others, because they'll just start hitting you from all over the place. Like I needed to with my big manifestation here, becoming a mom, every aspect of my life. The universe loves throwing expanders, even when you don't even notice. You'll start to clock them a lot more the more you do this work. You'll be like, how crazy that this thing expanded me in a home when I'm manifesting this in a job, or whatever. But yeah, being able to start to recognize instead of attaching to the thing and being like, wow. I'll give a great example for this Victorian to really hammer this point home. So this Victorian home was the initial thing I had always been calling in Mendocino on my list. I had been looking in Scotland, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, it faced the ocean. You can see the ocean out of every single window in the house. You can see the ocean and the forest is behind it. I needed a final push of that expansion. I went to my friend Katie's house, who has a home in Carpinteria, in the hills of Carpinteria, that looks at the ocean. And I went, wow, this is possible. Lo and behold, not even a month later, it was one of the final pieces and push of expansion that I needed in order for my subconscious to see, to believe like, oh, I can have this, So just allowing, when we have those moments, not grasping at them. But the biggest thing, and I want to keep talking about this because I think this is really important for people in the challenge, but the biggest thing I want to say that's coming up, I believe, in consciousness and this conversation for winter energetics is winter. It's all about going inward, the death. We've had the death happen through autumn, and now you're in that cocoon waiting to rebirth through spring. Allow that death. Everybody listening, for me too, for other manifestations I have, how can we allow the death to truly happen from anywhere that we are not in our trust muscle and we are clinging on to something? It means it's such a clear sign that we're not integrated in that thing yet. We're just not. And so I think that's the next thing we can talk about within this authenticity challenge, is how to truly integrate so we can get rid of the dog paddling and allow this winter cocooning energy, this inward time that we're all experiencing, addressing our true authenticity. When we say authenticity, all it is all we're getting in touch with is our soul and our soul's wants and needs, and manifesting from that place rather than the ego. So how can we allow the true winter energetics to start to kill off those places where we're clinging and we're dog paddling and attaching? Like, I think that's the ultimate lesson from this conversation as we're going through this challenge.
Yes, 1,000%. Yeah, if you think about the energetics of winter, rest and reflection, death and rebirth, clarity, transformation, renewal, connecting to ancestors, deep wisdom, planting seeds for the new, integrating the growth of seasons we've already experienced, connecting us back to our magic, our gifts of just in our being, not in our doing, but in our being. Feeling our feelings, connecting to the divine, the spirit, the unseen world, celebration of light and unity. The other thing that keeps popping up so loudly with this conversation is how the trust muscle really is the faith in allowing yourself to accept that your needs are deserving and worthy of having, and openness. openness and expansion, and openness to ideas, openness to seeing the world as manifestations instead of like, well, manifestation is only XYZ. See everything good that comes into your life as a manifestation, because the way that you will dance with the universe from that place where you're like, wow, it's working for me here, it's helping me here, look at this, that is going to deepen that trust muscle that that thing that you really want can come through. How can we be more curious, less rigid, dropping the control? And so much of my unblocking and all of these themes was sitting with the younger part of self that felt like she had to be in control, otherwise shit would hit the fan and it didn't feel safe. And really sitting with her and being like, hey, I see you wanting to control. I get it, but you're a kid and I'm the adult now and we're okay. I got it from here. It might look different, but it's okay. I got it. We're going to get that thing. Don't worry. You don't have to control. And when you really have that healing experience in the DIs, when you really have that unblocking experience, that's how you create that little crack for something new to come in, a new way of being, a new possibility.
That's the biggest thing I would say for winter. Winter really is the integration month. That's what winter energetics are, honestly, essentially. And if there's anything we can take away from both Jessica and my experiences of manifestation, most often, once we allow that crack and let go of that control, it's because the manifestation is even more perfect and better than what our mind was attached to, our inner child and wounding was attached to. And that's why it's dancing with us and it's not here at this moment, in my opinion. Now, the quickest way, just to highlight things a little bit further, Jessica, taking from everything we just broke down and now looking at your wedding, are there any things that you would shift, or are you already in that space? Because it sounds like to me you're already in that space of complete surrender. And
I think I have to get really very quiet for the pings to come through of like where it is, because I think there was still a little bit of, well, we should just be looking on random sites, even in a small way. Like our neighbors have the most unbelievable view. And they just shared with us that they're like, yeah, we always wanted to rent out the backyard to do ceremonies for weddings. And we're like, okay. So like there's all these little things that kind of have just been clicking. So I think my biggest piece of advice of like, okay, what to apply to your next manifestation, just keep looking for the synchronicities, looking for the expansion, be humble enough to change your narrative of what you think it should look like. Tune back into your heart, back into your authenticity. What is it? With the wedding, it's even like we're getting even more granular into, I want to feel like we are in the space of a home, you know, whether it's like a resort that all of our friends are staying at and it feels like our space, whether it's like we rent, which is what the one expander did. They like rented a huge house and had both parties stay at it. And then they had the ceremony spot close by. I love the sensation of feeling like nourished by a home. No wonder I wouldn't want my wedding to be connected to that. Like makes sense. So just listen to the whispers of your authenticity. That's like kind of like we've said in other podcasts, it's pulling you, guiding you there. You have to just let the monkey mind calm down. That's why the rest and integration is so key.
I couldn't agree more. And I just think this is such a big, perfect conversation for literally everybody who's on this challenge, curious about this challenge, or sitting there like, okay, I've fallen into this bracket and haven't manifested that big thing yet. Because ultimately, what we've been talking about this entire episode is truly your trust muscle and how to arrive there.
So good. Thank you, Lacy. And thank you for the session, because I know you don't do it anymore.
It's just so, I love that it's so fun, this stuff. It's so fun to break down more and more and more, because it allows us to see how to apply it to our own personal process. And I bet throughout this conversation, there's been a lot of light bulb moments for a lot of people listening, because when you become more seasoned in this work, you start to understand the nuances. You recognize them so much faster. You understand them quicker. You recognize, like we're talking about, the nuances of all of the different types of expanders you are picking up along the way aren't as obvious when you first start this work, and recognizing that you are being pinged to those expanders throughout the home process. A lot of people would be like, nope, that's not the area. Why would I look in Lake Arrowhead? That's not the area, and starting to understand that's the universe directly communicating with you. Go on Zillow and look at this because you need that expansion, right? We always talk about a ping is either leading to a manifestation or an expansion. Being able to understand and hear your pings and follow them. And the big takeaway, letting go of that tight hold on that North Star thing and actually just accepting that North Star as the ultimate expander, but allowing all the other expanders around the way, trusting that those are guiding you to the thing even more perfect for your authentic self, which is energetically your soul.
I mean, this is also so pertinent too for moving in from Pluto and Capricorn to Pluto and Aquarius. We are out of that Capricorn control energy. We need to get into that surrender, that dance, that magic, that authenticity.
Agreed.
Thank you, Lacy.
Thank you, Jessica.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacy, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out the Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.